What do you guys do when you have insomnia? Huh? It's interesting. Really? Hmm. Never thought of that. I get up in the middle of the night, start working on boards and getting ready for videos. Yeah. I woke up, my cough woke me up after about an hour of me sleeping, and then my brain started going, and my brain hasn't shut up. So here I am. And here we are with this beautiful board, and I've done something a little bit different today because it's fun to do something a little bit different once in a while, right? We're starting off with Minnesota in against the Montreal Canadiens. Now, the Minnesota Wild are on the verge of becoming a playoff team. Why? Because Anaheim's really not made it easy on themselves with their 8 straight losses. And Minnesota looks like they might be ready to pick it up. They're 20-17-3. They're 4-5-1 in their last 10. Well, that's not great, but they've won their last two. On the road, they're 10-10, and versus the East, they're 6-6-1. But they're in tough because they're in against the Montreal Canadiens. Montreal's 22-15-5, and they need this win because they're in a dogfight with Buffalo for that last playoff spot right now. That changes nightly, though. 6-4 is the record in the last 10, but they lost their last game. That, of course, was against Nashville on Saturday. At home, they're 11-8-2, and versus the West, they're 10-7. So this should be a pretty solid matchup. The numbers seem to kind of sort of favor Montreal, but the nice thing is, with the white and green jerseys of the Minnesota Wild and the red and white jerseys of the Montreal Canadiens with a little bit of blue sprinkle in, it'll still look like Christmas. It's January. Christmas won't let you go when it comes to NHL jerseys, I tell you. Now, goals leaders for Minnesota Wild. Parise has 19, Stahl 13, Dumba 12, Granlund 11, and Zucker has 10. Assists leaders. Granlund 27, Suter 23, Parise 19, Koivu 18, and Spurgeon has 17. Penalty minutes leaders, Foligno with 27 and Patterson with 23 are the top two there. Plus minus, and I know this is a stat that people don't like a lot of the time, so I don't use it very often. And when I do, it's only to point out the guys who are at the top. Coyle's at plus 9 and Parise's at plus 9. Power play points, Dumba has 12, Granlund has 11. So Dumba being out does affect their special teams. Their wins leader, Dubnyk has 15, Stalock has 5. Save percentage leader, Dubnyk 912, Stalock 903. And looking for shutouts, I found none for the Minnesota Wild. None. Now on the Montreal side of things, Gallagher leads them in scoring with 15. Now Gallagher's been on 15 for a while, so he is kind of due for a hat trick kind of thing. Domi 14, Tatar 14, Drouin 13, and Shaw with 11. Assist leaders, Domi with 24, Petrie with 21, Drouin with 20, Dano with 20, and Tatar with 17. Dano doesn't show up on the goals list, but of those 7 goals, I believe 5 of them are in the last few weeks. So if you're into the whole fantasy thing, Dano's still a pretty good pickup if he's available. Penalty minutes, Domi leads the way with 45. Yes, Domi's actually one of the higher penalty minute guys in the league right now because being in Montreal, being all fired up, seems to be helping his game. Shaw with 38 is close behind. Plus minus, Dano leads the way with a plus 10. Mate with a plus 9. Now this is where plus minus gets sketchy. Mate with a plus 9, and he's a guy who's been sent down at times this year, tells me he's probably playing sheltered minutes. So that plus minus rating is probably flattering for him. The power play points, Drouin with 10 and Max Domi with 9. Wins leader, of course, it's Price with 16. Niemi has 6. Save percentage, Price 908, Niemi 881. Shutouts, 2. There is no confirmation of a goaltender for this game as of yet because I'm recording this early in the morning or late at night, depending on how much sleep you got. For me, it feels like it's really late at night. But hey, it's part of... It's the nice thing about my job is I can just get up and go to work whenever I want. I just say, all right, well, I guess I'm at work now. I'm such a slave driver. Next up, Nashville in against Toronto. This should be a fun game. Nashville kind of felt like they were back in that game against Montreal, didn't they? And now they get a really big test in the Toronto Maple Leafs. We can all agree to disagree on what Toronto's ceiling is. Are they a team that's going to go out in the first, second round? Are they going to go to the final? Could they win it all? Your guess is as good as mine on that one. once we get to playoff time, I'll be willing to make that prediction. But right now, I really don't know, because we don't know how healthy they're going to be and all that other stuff, and what kind of cold streaks and hot streaks they're going to have between now and then. Right now, Nashville's 25-15-3. They're 3-5-2 in their last 10, but they did win their last game, as I said, so maybe they're starting to get back into form. On the road, they're 10-8-3, and versus the East, they're 13-3-2, so that's still an excellent record against the East. Toronto's 27-12-2 overall. They're 6-3-1. They won their last game. Their home record is 13-7-1. Versus the West, they're 12-4. So both teams do very, very well against the other conference. I think this will be a very close game. I don't think there'll be a ton of scoring. However, it'll be interesting to see how Toronto's goaltending holds up game after game. Did pretty well in the last game against Vancouver. Let's see how they do tonight. Goals leaders for the Nashville Predators. Forsberg with 14. I haven't heard that he's back yet, but I know he was close to being cleared on Saturday. I have a funny feeling he'll be cleared for this one or the next one. Smith 14. Arvidsson 12. Hartman 9. Bonino and Johansson both have 8 to round out the top goal scorers. Assist leaders, Johansson's number 1 there with 28. Ekholm 24. Yossi 23. Fiala 16. And Ellis with 15. Penalty minutes leaders, Ekholm and Hartman both have 31 penalty minutes. Plus minus leaders, Colton Sissons with plus 19, Ekholm plus 16. Power play points, Johansson with 10, Yossi with 8. And when I look across the board, 8 is tied for the lowest number of any power play point leader. So for what it's worth, just one of those things I throw out there. Wins leader, Rene, 15, Saros with 10. I would imagine Rene plays this one tonight because it's Toronto. You want to give him that best shot at it. Saros played the last game, so I'd be very surprised if Rene doesn't play, but they haven't confirmed it yet. Save percentage leaders, Rene 919, Saros 906. Of course, Rene's save percentage has been pedestrian for the last month and a half. Shutouts, both of them have 2. Both Rene and Saros have 2 shutouts for the Nashville Predators. On the Toronto side of things, their goal scoring leaders, of course, Tavares with 27. Matthews with 20, Marner with 15, Kapanen with 14, Riley with 13. Your assist leaders, Marner with 40, Riley with 32, Gardner 21, Tavares 20, Matthews with 19. Penalty minute leaders, Hyman 42, and Kadri 31. Plus minus leaders, Riley with a plus 27, Hainsey with a plus 23. And for people in Toronto who'd like to see Riley get some consideration for the Norris, the voters seem to look at a few things. Plus minus matters, and your ice time matters, and your points seem to matter. So Riley's not really one of the top guys when it comes to minutes on the ice, but his plus minus is pretty darn solid. Power play points, Riley's right there too. He's got 14. He's tied with Marner for the lead on the team with that record. Your wins leaders for Toronto, Anderson with 20, Sparks with 6. Hutchinson, including his game in Florida, he has 2 for the year. Save percentage leaders, Anderson 923, Sparks 905. Hutchinson, again, including his time in Florida, 879. And I'm always torn on that. Like, should I just include with the new team? Should I include the old team? Should I put their old stats with the old team? Like, it's one of those things I wonder about. I just leave it as it is for right now. But once we get further along in the season, I may very well split it out somehow. Your shutouts leaders, all 3 guys have 1 shutout. You might expect Freddie Anderson to have more than 1 shutout, considering how many games he's played, how well he's played, and how excellent his save percentage has been for the most part, but he's only got the 1 shutout. And Sparks and Hutchinson also have the 1. Hutchinson's been confirmed as the starter for tonight's game against Nashville. That's why if you're a Toronto fan, you might be a little bit nervous, because Hutchinson had a pretty solid game against Vancouver, but his overall stats aren't that great. So Nashville coming in is a little bit different than Vancouver, and we'll see how that affects their overall game. Next up, Calgary. Yes, the Flames. 26-13-4. They're in against the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, for Calgary, they're 5-3-2 in their last 10. They won their last game. On the road, they're 14-9 versus the West. They're 18-9-2. The overall picture for Calgary is a very rosy one, and for good reason. Winnipeg, for the most part, has looked kind of like they're falling back now. They had an excellent game last night against Road Dallas. But, Calgary really does look like they could be the best team in the West this year. They could end up being a number 1 seed. Now, Nashville's going to have something to say about that before it's said and done. And San Jose and Vegas may very well get into the conversation in the Pacific as well. They're in the conversation, but for right now, Calgary's leading. But this is a good test. The Chicago Blackhawks are 16, 12, and 1. They're 6, 3, and 1 in their last 10. They won their last game. At home, they're 8, 9, and 4, so that's not good enough. Versus the West, they're 10, 13, and 4, which is also not good enough. But Chicago had such a really, really rough schedule. That really rough, they lose like 12 in a row. It was really sad. And digging their way out of that is going to be darn near impossible. But they're trying. And they may be looking for a bit of a lift after the game they had last night against Pittsburgh. Now, is that just against Pittsburgh, or can they carry that over? That's going to be the key thing. Your goals leaders for Calgary: Gaudreau with 24, Monahan 22, Lindholm with 20, Tkachuk 19, Backlund and Frolik with 9 apiece. Assist leaders: Gaudreau 38, Giordano 33, Monahan 30, Tkachuk 30, Lindholm 28. Penalty minutes leaders: Bennett with 70, Matt Tkachuk with 41. He is less than a point a game for penalty minutes this year. That's a good sign for Matthew Tkachuk that his game has really settled down in this being year 2, right? Yeah, it's 2. Plus minus leaders: Giordano with a plus 29. So that helps with Norris. And Lindholm's plus 25. Can we talk about the Selke with Elias Lindholm? Can we? Because I think we may get into that conversation at some point. The best defensive forward, to me, it's not what it was kind of meant to be at the beginning when Bob Gainey was winning it all the time. It was meant for the best defensive forward. But it kind of comes down to your best forward who plays at both ends of the ice. They usually have an excellent plus minus. Their possession numbers are excellent. We'll see if Lindholm's there at the end of the year. Power play points: Gaudreau and Tkachuk both have 18. Excellent special teams, but excellent 5-on-5 for Calgary. They know how to score goals. Your wins leaders: Rittich has 14. Smith has 12. Smith only has 2 less wins than Rittich. Save percentage, though, tells the story. Rittich's at a 921 and Smith's at 886. And any Flames fan will tell you. They may have those numbers memorized by heart. Shutout leaders: Smith with 2, Rittich with 1. So Smith has more shutouts, almost as many wins. Everything looks great. And then you get to the save percentage. You go, there's the difference maker right there. Rittich gives you a chance to win games, and Smith, you got to hold on. Goal leaders for Chicago: Kane with 23, DeBrincat with 19, Taves with 17, Saad with 11, Dylan Strome with 10. Strome's fit in pretty well in Chicago. And we'll see what they do with him. And we'll see how things work out for Schmaltz in Arizona. He's hurt right now. But we'll see how that whole thing works out. It's why it's hard to grade trades when they're first made. It sometimes takes a year or two to figure out exactly who won the trade. Assist leaders: Kane with 31, Taves with 22, Keith with 17. I have to mention Duncan Keith got his first goal in last night's game against Pittsburgh because I don't show that here. So it's not that I'm against Keith. That's not why I started doing this. When I realized Keith wasn't going to be on the goals, wasn't going to mention it, I was like, oh no. So I thought, okay, mention it in the preview. So there you go. I mentioned it. Gustafson 16 and DeBrincat with 15. Penalty minute leaders: Keith with 60, Seabrook with 25. Your plus minus leaders: Cahoon with plus 8, Connor Murphy with a plus 7. Yeah, it surprises me to see Connor Murphy there. But for Chicago, they're having kind of a rough year. Keith and Seabrook are going to be pulling the tough matchups. So with a goal differential in the negatives, I think Chicago's at a minus 29 right now. It's going to make it so that your plus minus numbers with Chicago are a little less reliable than with others. Power play points: Kane with 16 and DeBrincat with 10. Your wins leaders: Ward with 7 now, Crawford with 6, and Delia with 3. Save percentage leaders: Delia with a 952, Crawford with a 902, and Ward's up to an 889. No, Ward hasn't been good enough overall, but his win-loss record isn't bad, and they seem to play well in front of him. They seem to like him. Shutouts: the only shutout this year has been for Corey Crawford, just the one, and Delia is starting tonight. So no indication from Calgary, but I would be shocked if it wasn't Rittich. I think Rittich is in there. I think if they put in Smith again to try to get him going, I think some Flame fans are going to be quite upset about that if that happens. Next up, LA and San Jose. So Battle of California. That doesn't involve the Anaheim Ducks. And the Kings are really looking to get back into this. And the math is really dodgy, but thanks to Anaheim, that other California team, maybe it's possible. Maybe it's possible that a mediocre team with 85 or 86 points can get in. And the Kings could definitely get to 85 or 86 points. That being said, we've got half a season left to play. I mentioned Minnesota's getting better. They're tracking for 88 or 89 points at their current points pace. If we're to believe it, which I kind of don't. Anyways, over their last 10, the 17, 23, and 3 Kings are 6-3-1. They won their last game. On the road, they're 7-11-2, and versus the West, they're 12-13-1. So they got to improve that road record. Evening up that record against the West would be good for them too. San Jose's 23, 13-7. They're 6-2-2 in their last 10. They've won 2 in a row. At home, they're 13-4-4. Excellent record for San Jose at home. Versus the West, also a solid record, 15-7-3. So everything kind of indicates this should be a San Jose game. But when it's a Battle of California, that kind of all goes out the window. Your goal leaders for LA. Brown with 11, Kopitar with 10, Iafallo with 9, Carter with 8, and then Kovalchuk, Toffoli, and Matt Luff with 7. Luff's been pretty fun to watch. If you've been able to watch Kings games, it's been kind of a dog's breakfast for most of the year, but Luff's been fun to watch. Assists, Doughty with 21, Kopitar with 18, Brown with 13, Muzzin with 13, and Iafallo with 12. If I was putting up points per game, Brown would be right up there. Brown has played very well in the games he's played in, and he's already the number 1 goal scorer. Kind of by default, though. Penalty minute leaders, Clifford with 35, Kempe with 30. Kyle Clifford has really settled the penalty minutes down. This is what shows fighting's really kind of out of the game, because Clifford only has 35 penalty minutes. Plus minus, Muzzin with a +8, and Hagelin is a +4. He's on the chart. I debated about whether or not to include him, because of course that's going to include almost entirely Pittsburgh, and yet I thought, no, he's a King. I'll just leave it as it is. Power play points, Doughty with 12, Carter with 10. Lead the way. And of course, Hagelin's been injured too, right? Wins, Quick with 7, Campbell with 5, and Peterson also with 5. Save percentage leaders, Campbell with a .930, Peterson 924, Quick 902, and Budai's on the chart with an 818. Not great appearance by Budai. Shutouts, Quick has 2, Campbell 1, Peterson also has 1. So the Kings have managed 4 shutouts this year out of their 17 wins. That's not bad. The problem is the quantity of wins, not the quantity of shutouts. On the San Jose side of things, Pavelski, 25 goals, leads the team. Meyer with 18, Couture with 16, Hurdle and Kane, 14 each. Assists, Burns with 40, Carlson 32. So Erik Karlsson is second on the team in assists. He's playing very well lately. Couture 26, LeBanc 20, Meyer 19, and Hurdle 19. And by playing really well, I mean that it's not just the advanced stats you have to look at, but his actual numbers have been getting better. So he did kind of break through as was expected. He just hasn't put up the goals yet, but it's getting there. Penalty minute leaders for the Sharks, Kane with 79, and Barclay Goodrow with 51. Plus minus, Brendan Dillon with a +17, Timo Meyer with a +12. Power play points, Burns is a 19 on that chart, and Erik Karlsson has 15. So Burns and Karlsson, not necessarily together, although with the amount of injuries they have, I noticed they were together. I don't know if that's just on special teams, but I noticed them on scoring plays together. So we'll see. I mean, playing defensemen that are the same hand at the same time, it's dicey at best, right? It's hard enough when you've got forwards. When you've got a left winger and a right winger that are the same hand, whether it's right or left. That can get kind of dicey for your matchups. But defensemen, it's really tough. Wins leaders, Jones with 18, which is fantastic. We'll get there. Dell with 5. Save percentage, Jones is at 897 right now. I'm pulling for you, Martin. You can get her up there. And Dell with an 889. Shutout leaders, Dell actually has 2 and Jones has the 1. I would expect Quick tonight for LA because he's been playing well. And I would expect Jones because San Jose's got to play Jones. His numbers have to get better. And the good news is that the Kings do struggle to score most of the time. The problem is they didn't struggle in their last game. And they really look like they haven't given up on that playoff run. They really don't look like they've given up at all. All right, next up, finally, last but not least, the thing to resistance. St. Louis in against Philly. This is that somebody has to win game. We get one of those a night, it seems. 16, 19, and 4 is the record of the St. Louis Blues. Over their last 10, they're 5-5 because, of course, they are. They have a good game, bad game, good game, bad game. They lost their last one. That was the bad game. They lost at home 4-3 against the Islanders, a game that they were leading, could have won. They didn't. On the road, they're 6-7-2, and versus the East, they're 5-6. Philadelphia, 15, 20, and 6 overall. 3-5-2 in their last 10. They've lost 6 in a row. At home, they're 7-9-3, and versus the West, they're 7-8-3. So yeah, all the numbers indicate this could be a high-scoring game. Then you kind of get into the goaltending side of things, and that's where it gets really, really interesting. But we'll get there. Goals leaders for St. Louis, O'Reilly with 16, Perron with 13, Tarasenko 11, Schenn with 8, and Bozak with 6. Assist leaders, O'Reilly with 22, Perron with 15, Schenn with 15, Dunn with 14, and Jaden Schwartz has 13. Penalty minute leaders, Edmondson has 52, both Perron and Maroon have 34. Plus minus, O'Reilly leads the way there with a plus 8, Parayko with a plus 5. I was surprised to see Parayko with a plus 5, to be honest. Power play points, O'Reilly with 10, Perron and Tarasenko both have 9. So, not tremendous numbers, but they lead the way. Wins, Allen has 14. And done. Save percentage, Allen with an 898, Binnington with an 840. Shutouts, Allen has 1. And Jordan Binnington makes his NHL debut as a starter tonight. St. Louis has announced he's going to start the game. So, they've been toying with it. They've been sending him to the minors to make sure he's, getting games in and playing. And now he's getting the shot at starting a game. And it's against the Flyers. And the Flyers can score. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. The Flyers can definitely score. Their goals leaders, Couturier with 15, Giroux with 13, Simmons with 12, Voracek with 10, Konechny also has 10. Assist leaders, Giroux with 33, Voracek with 22, Couturier 14, Konechny 13, and Gostisbehere has 12. Now, again, I've said this before, I think Sean Couturier is the engine that drives this team. I think for Philly, as long as he's playing well, they have a shot. When he's cold, they really kind of sort of don't. And when I say they have a shot, they still have to get past the fact that their defense hasn't been good enough, and their goaltending has been just a misadventure. And their defense, I'm really waiting to see what Chuck Fletcher's going to do, because honestly, he's going to have to figure out which of that talented young defense he might have to move to improve the team elsewhere. What part of the mix is not working? And it might be a guy like a Sanheim. I'm not saying it's going to be Sanheim. I'm saying a guy like him. It may not be a top 2, top 4 guy, but something has to change with that mix. Your wins leaders, Elliott with 6, Hart with 2, Stolarz 2, Neuwirth 1. I didn't include Pickard because he's in Arizona. Save percentage, Elliott 911, Hart 901, Stolarz 880, Neuwirth 859, and Lyon 806. Your shutout leader, Elliott, who had the only shutout. Carter Hart starting tonight against the Blues. So it's Hart versus Binnington. If you had said in September, I think when St. Louis plays Philly, neither team's going to be anywhere near the playoffs, and I think it'll be Carter Hart and Jordan Binnington, people would have told you you were insane. Would have said you're wrong. You're crazy. And here we are. So there you go. You're primed for the 5 games for tonight. Let me know your picks. Let me know your thoughts. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. And I intend to just do this kind of thing. As long as I can't sleep, I might as well be productive. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I'll talk to you again soon.